November 11th. The evening should have been simple. A Christmas party. A chance to step out of routine. A moment to enjoy. But with Cedric, nothing was ever that simple. I drove to his workplace, expecting to find him waiting so we could head to the party together. And he was, standing outside, watching as I pulled in. But the moment I stepped out of the car, I could feel it, the shift, the tension tightening the air between us. While driving, I had turned into the wrong parking lot, right instead of left. A simple mistake in a place I had never parked before. Funny enough, I had hoped I wouldn't get lost, because I knew this would happen. I knew he'd be upset. It wasn't like it mattered, but to him, it did. The irritation in his eyes deepened when I mentioned I had forgotten the parking pass at home. I walked toward him, meaning to greet him, to bridge the gap before it widened. But before I could say a word, he pointed to the parking meter, his silent way of telling me to pay for parking. No hello, no words. So I went. Alone. When I returned, he was sitting on a bench, arms folded, distant. I leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to his lips, hoping to break through whatever wall he was building. But his lips didn't move. No warmth. No return. In silence, we walked toward the venue. Neither of us spoke. The cold between us stretched long and unbroken, like a shadow trailing behind us. Then, just as we reached the entrance, we ran into one of his colleagues, someone I had never seen before. The man greeted my husband first, then turned to me. "Good luck," he said with a small smile before walking away. I opened my mouth to respond, but he was already gone. Good luck? I wanted to stop him, to ask what he meant, but I didn't need to. I already knew. It wasn't the kind of well-wishing people gave before an event. It wasn't about the party at all. It was about him. Once inside, the transformation was almost instant. As we moved through the crowd, as conversations bubbled around us, his mood shifted. He laughed, shook hands, talked effortlessly, as if nothing had happened. As if just moments ago, he hadn't frozen me out over a parking spot. As if the tension, the silence, the way he had pulled away, it had all vanished the moment someone else was watching. As if none of it had ever been real. November 12th. I got angry tonight. Really angry. We were about to start our dance lesson. Something light, something fun, something we had planned to do together. It was a pre-recorded class, just the two of us in our living room, the teacher's voice echoing softly from the screen. He already seemed off. His mood was tight, distant. But I didn't let it affect me. I was in a good mood, determined to enjoy the moment. The class began, and I started following the instructor's moves, letting my body loosen into the rhythm. It felt good to move, to not overthink. Then, out of nowhere, Cedric turned to me. "Stop," he said. His tone was clipped, impatient. I paused, a little confused, but brushed it off. I kept moving, practicing some other steps, not the ones from the video, just small warm-up motions. He turned to me again. This time, his voice was sharper. "Stop doing it." His face was stern now, the softness gone. "We haven't even done the stretch," he snapped, "and you're ruining it." I stared at him, stunned. I tried to explain, tried to tell him I wasn't doing what he thought, that I was just warming up, not trying to disrupt anything. But the words got tangled somewhere between my chest and my throat, and suddenly all the joy drained from me. Frustration and hurt welled up in my chest, and without another word, I walked over to the sofa and sat down hard, folding into myself. The excitement, the energy, all of it gone. He saw me, he knew I was upset. But he didn't say a word, not a glance, not a gesture, not even a sigh. The silence sat between us like a third person in the room, cold and deliberate. It wasn't until the next day that I said something. Of course, it was me. It's always me who brings it up, who holds the thread of our connection and ties it back together. When I finally mentioned how I felt, he apologized. But it didn't erase the moment. It didn't change the way I sat there, alone in my sadness, while the man who promised to dance with me turned away before the music even started. November 15th. It was a Tuesday. We were doing our usual nighttime routine, moving through the quiet motions of getting ready for bed. I was in a light mood, relaxed, not expecting anything unusual. Then I mentioned something, a small detail I had just remembered about one of my students' parents who had written to me. Nothing major. I had already told Cedric the full story before. This was just a forgotten thread, a tiny leftover I hadn't shared. And that's when it happened. His mood shifted. I saw it in his face, in the way his body seemed to close up, in the sudden chill that crept into the room. He didn't say much. He never does when this happens, but I knew. I always know. Without a word, he drifted into that cold, silent space he retreats to when something displeases him. Just like that, I was shut out again. November 16th. The silence held. I called. I texted. Nothing. By the end of the day, he finally called back to say he'd been too busy. Too busy. The words sat heavy on my chest. He was physically present, moving through the same rooms, brushing past me, sharing the same air, but, emotionally, he was gone. There was no warmth, no affection, no recognition of how it made me feel. And I was left to wonder, again, what did I do? Why does something so small always lead to something so heavy? I've started to wonder if this is something deeper, something broken inside him, and if it is, how do I help someone who won't admit there's anything wrong, who won't even talk to me? November 17th. We didn't speak. I said, "Have a good day, Pulfar." In the morning, when he came home, he said, "Good afternoon." That was the only exchange between us. The rest of the day passed in silence. November 18th. Today, I made a decision. I'm going to tell my mom. I need someone to pray, to know, to see me. Up until now, I've honored his wishes, keeping quiet, not telling anyone how he treats me. As if our struggles were too personal to be spoken aloud. As if everything could be fixed behind closed doors. But the more days pass like this, the more I feel like I'm disappearing. I feel small, unloved, unwelcome in my own home. So no, I'm not going to tell him. But I am going to tell my parents, especially my mom. She's the person I share everything with, and keeping this from her has felt unnatural. Some days she'd call and I wouldn't have the energy to talk. I'd just say, "I'm tired." And she'd always reply, "Call me if you need to talk." I love her for that. I love them both. They've always been my quiet place, my soft landing, my truth. Tonight, we still didn't speak. I asked him if he wanted to eat with me. He said he wasn't hungry. So I sat at the table and ate alone. But just before I began, I felt a sharp pain in my chest, right under my left breast. It started while I was heating up my food, and it stole my breath for a moment. A stabbing, sudden ache. I texted him about it, even though I knew he wouldn't see it. He hasn't checked my messages since Tuesday, so I did the only thing I could. I called my mom. And for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. Just saying it out loud, letting someone see me again. It felt like air after drowning in silence. I gave it all to God tonight. My fear, my ache, my loneliness, and I prayed. 5 days. That's how long the silence lasted. 5 days of walking past each other like strangers. 5 days of silence so thick it felt like another presence in the house. Until I couldn't take it anymore, I went to him, and we talked. It wasn't everything. It wasn't healing, but it was something. And right now, that's enough. November 26th. It was late, around 11:35, when he came to me, a look of quiet disapproval already clouding his face. "I think it's stupid to leave half a tomato in the fridge," he said. Just like that, flat, dismissive. The words stung more than they should have, not because of the tomato, but because of the way he said it. As if in that single sentence, he wasn't criticizing the action, but me. I felt the insult settle in my chest, heavy and sharp. It sounded like he was calling me stupid over something so minor, so ordinary, a tomato. I turned to him, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm not stupid," I said. "Why would you say that to me?" His eyes didn't flinch. "I didn't call you stupid, I was just making a statement." He repeated it again, more firmly this time. "No, I'm not calling you stupid." But the damage was done. I couldn't believe we were standing in our kitchen, arguing about a piece of produce. And not just any produce, half of one. I told him I didn't like his choice of words, that calling something stupid over something as normal as storing half an item in the fridge, whether it's a tomato, a lemon, an onion, was unnecessary and hurtful. Everyone does it. It's practical. It's common sense. I asked him to apologize. He didn't. And as the silence settled between us once again, I realized that sometimes the smallest things, a word, a tone, a tomato, can reveal everything.